This show is brought to you by Whatever You Say Productions, starting conversations since 2018.
Whoosh.
Yes. Very sad. I don't think we've ever started an episode that way, but you know what? I'll take it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 8 of Mikroscope. We're chugging right along, and we're thrilled to have you with us. My name is Samantha.
And my name is Mike. And today we are going back to talking about sort of how can we educate the public on climate change. And
Yes.
today, let's talk a little bit about how can we have children influence their parents.
Thank goodness. But before we get into it, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. It's freezing out here in
Really?
Arizona. Well, freezing, it's, 74, but like
Oh, freezing.
I was in a parka today.
Oh my God. I think we have a very exciting announcement that we can make regarding the show. And I will let you make it because the show is named after you.
Well, thank you. So I'd like I'd like to announce to everyone that I officially switched my car insurance to Geico and
Geico?
saved a bunch
To
of
save
money on my car
15%
insurance.
You say 50% or more?
Okay, sorry. I had to. I absolutely had to.
In
No,
addition,
so
in addition to saving money.
right, addition to saving money because I'm so poor. No, so super exciting news. So what, 2 weeks ago when I sat down with Kevin and we were talking and we had that wonderful episode, him and I went and got drinks afterwards and, I decided that I wanted to offer him the position as a new co-host to Microscope.
Yes.
And he reluctantly, or maybe reluctantly isn't the right word, but excitingly, reluctant, I think is
Emphatically.
emphatically.
I hope he wasn't reluctant. He signed his contract. God.
Yes. So
No,
we have
Kevin.
You go for it.
Kevin has officially accepted our offer from Whatever You Say Productions to be a regular host on this show, and we are so proud. We are thrilled. We're so looking forward to this. I mean, look, you guys, I know that I'm not a scientist. I never pretended to be one ever, and I really think that this show needed another voice that was sort of in between myself and Mike. So what I love so much about Kevin is not only is he a fantastic person, but he can talk like a normal person, which is something that you struggle with. And he can also talk like a scientist, which is something I struggle with. So he's sort of like the best of both worlds. I think that he's fascinating. And I will speak for Kevin right now. He is really excited to be with us. So we are just thrilled. Kevin is going to be a regular host on the show. He's busy for the next couple of weeks. So hopefully in the episodes coming, he will be on regularly. And Kevin and Mike will just kind of take it away and talk about whatever. Now, another semi-exciting announcement. I've said this before on the other shows. I don't know if I've said it on this show. Microscope is my favorite podcast that we have because
you say that every episode and we love it.
It's so near and dear to my heart. I just love the planet. I love animals. I want to help. I want to understand. And so we're really excited because we finally found the perfect way to build out our show and build out the brand of this show. So we've been thinking a lot about Microscope and really what it means. And so much of the conversations focus around environmental science and climate change and what's happening in all the environments. But we felt like we needed, and all the different ecosystems. Pardon me. Look, I'm learning and I'm self-correcting. Are you proud of me?
Very clapping for you.
Thank you. So we felt like, because I did the research and a lot of our audience is actually not scientists. Like it's a 50-50 split. We have a lot of people that are in academia, but then we have a lot of people that just want to be a part of the conversation. And so on our Instagram, which you can follow @_microscope_. And of course, you guys know Microscope is spelled with a K instead of a C because it's named after Mike. We have started a little web series called Through the Garden Gate that features my mother, Lely, and sometimes I kind of pop in and out. And it's all about DIY tips for gardening, landscaping, and floral design. But it also goes beyond that. We're going to be coming out with more episodes where we talk about different plants, different trees, different bushes, how to identify when they're healthy versus when they really need some help, where to put what, because Mike, I don't know if you know this, but the gardening industry in general has had a massive boom over the last few years, and we're talking in the billions, and it's all these people that really want to start gardening, but they don't really know where to start. And so we want to help save people some time and money, and that's why we do Through the Garden Gate. But we're not here to just talk about Through the Garden Gate. We're here to talk about how, thank goodness gracious, children really truly are the answer when it comes to understanding climate change, making it at least a United States wide awareness, so that we can have a more positive impact on the world around us. So the good news in this is that children can foster climate change concerns among their parents. We're
Oh,
going to be talking about.
away. You gave it all away.
Well, I didn't give it all away. I think that we knew that children have influence, but I want to dig into this study, and it was by Lawson and his team at North Carolina State University.
Lawson's a shit.
And he really is. We do a lot of reviews of his work. So
No, wait.
let's talk about
Lawson
this.
is actually Daniela. Lawson's her last
What?
name.
Who's Daniela?
So her name is Daniela Lawson.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought it was Daniel. This is
No.
what happens. This is what happens when I lose my glasses. Daniela, I'm so sorry. Okay, so we do review a lot of her work on this show. So let's talk about this. I'm going to start things off by saying that minimizing climate change impacts really requires an immediate collective action. But here's the problem. The polarization of climate change persists while the level of concern does not match the severity of the imminent impacts. So basically, in order for us to really grasp and take control of climate change and reverse the effects, we're getting the message out loud and clear. We discussed this in a previous episode where 66% of Americans do acknowledge that climate change is a thing, with 22% of that 66 being able to properly identify exactly what climate change is. But the problem is, even though those people do recognize it's a problem, the level of the actual concern is not high enough, which means that not enough people are changing their lifestyle and or mindset. So Mike, why don't you really get into this study and talk about what it was all about?
Yeah, sure. So the level at which climate change is going to impact every single one of our lives is intense, right? It's a very dangerous situation that we're in, right? Just like Bill Nye said, the earth is on fucking fire, okay? Fucking fire. Oh, God, I love that. I can listen to that over and over again, right?
Yeah.
So we have to tackle this problem from many different strategies. And one strategy is to get more of community engagement. And to do that, you really need to be able to communicate the severity of climate change among different socio-ideological communities. And one method that Lawson et al., or maybe we'll just call her Daniela because I've never met her, but she did this, so she sounds like a wonderful person, right? So one method that Daniela thought was this idea of intergenerational learning. So to put this in the context, you teach the younger generation sort of this topic, in our case, climate change, and they in turn help to shift their parents, right? And in most cases, the parents have more influence because they have more power, they have more jobs, they interact with more people. And like children who, me who went to a Catholic school for, too long, like 12 years, I interacted with the same like 100 people every single day for 12 years. So essentially, they wanted to tackle the idea of like, can this method of intergenerational learning be used to help shift views and engagement in climate change within their parents. And so the really nice thing about, I guess we should call them adolescents because that's
Mhm.
like the proper term, right? So adolescents are essentially less influenced by socio-ideological factors. So you're not going to
Right.
talk to like a 10-year-old who's, oh, I'm Democrat, I'm Republican, I'm independent.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
like, I'm a Power Ranger, or like, I want to be a fireman.
I want to be a bird. Yeah. What
Right?
was that
So,
kid that was like, when I grow up, I want to be a turtle or something like that? I'm like, good for you,
right.
kid. Before we go any further, as someone who taught preschool for 10 years, I want to talk about adolescents and children and the special relationship that they do have with their parents and or guardians, because children really are less influenced by the social ideological factors in comparison to adults. So like you said, Mike, they're not going to sit around and be like, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, I'm this, that, or the other. Children are very black and white. It's very, this is right, this is wrong, this is what I think, and I'm going to go and eat my graham crackers, and please don't bother me for the next 10 minutes. So really understanding that that dynamic is real, and not only is that dynamic real, but that influence is very real, right? So children have a really special relationship with their parents, not only because they're family, but also because oftentimes parents view their children as a direct reflection of themselves, their ideals, how they interact with people, how they solve problems, how they react to things. And so, if we can really recognize that, but handle it with great care, I feel very strongly that the special relationship between children and their parents may be able to transcend those socio ideological barriers and bring that really critical shift in climate change concerns. But this then begs the question, how exactly do we do this? We really need to understand before we get all excited, right? We really need to have a clear understanding of the possibility and degree of which intergenerational learning can impact climate change concerns. So I'm not talking just awareness, because awareness is one thing, concern is different. Awareness is,
Concern
oh,
results in action.
exactly. Awareness is just, oh heavens, this is a problem. Let me go and buy some more plastic. Concern is, well, wait a minute. I should probably be using reusable bags and buy glass. So, Mike, I'd love for you to talk about the study that Daniela Lawson did with her colleagues.
So, yes. Essentially, they started out because Sam sort of alluded to it earlier that, like, yes, children are able to impact their parents' thinking. But when they started this study, it was sort of like, huh, this has worked in other cases. Will it work in this case? We don't know. So they conducted this study by collecting 30 teachers which participated in it. And they were separated randomly into two different groups. The first group was the treatment group, and the second group was the control group. The only difference, right? Everything was business as usual. The students still went to class. They still did math, English. I don't know. What else do you take in grammar school? I don't even know.
Science.
Oh, science. Reading, writing. Okay, right. So moving on. So business as usual. But the only difference is that in the treatment group, those teachers conducted a specific curriculum that only consisted of 4 classroom activities and then a field-based service project over the course of the semester. So it wasn't like they had a separate class that they learned about it every day. It was just like once a month, or essentially once a month, because a semester's really about five months. So it was something they
Yep.
did very infrequently. And what they did is they measured how this affected both the parents and the parents and the children's opinions over the course of 2 years, right? Before I get into what they found out, I want to touch on how they conducted this study and how well it was done. Because I think when a lot of people look at these sociology based studies, they're like, oh, well, they didn't take this into consideration, or They didn't take that into consideration. And don't get me wrong, a lot of studies do that. And a lot of it's not because they forgot to do it, but because in some cases it's very, very difficult and they don't have the resources to carry it out.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, Daniela Larson and her group actually had what they needed. So within these two groups, and when they talked to the parents and the children, they controlled for many different variables that could come into play.
Okay.
And some of these include how much those families actually talk about climate change, right? The child and the parent gender, the child and the parent race, the parent's political ideology, and the demographics of both the children, the parent, and the teacher. So they
Okay.
looked.
They
Oh,
looked at everything. I want to add a little something to
yeah,
this,
yeah.
if you don't mind. So, when you say families actually talked about climate change, I'd like to give a personal, uh, not a demonstration, heavens no, a personal example of exactly what this means. Because,
Demonstrate.
yeah, please, you don't want a demonstration from me. I'll be like, here's the baking soda and here's the vinegar. And if you mix them together, I think it explodes. Like, no, I am not a scientist. That is not what I'm here for. But I want to talk about those conversations because those conversations were very, very much a part of my own childhood. Not only the ones that I would have at home, but the ones that I also had at school. I can remember clear as day being 5 years old. I was in preschool, and I will never forget our teacher was eating an apple. We all had an apple for snack. And then we were instructed to eat everything except the core. We then brought the core outside and we dug a hole in the dirt and we all put our cores in and we filled it up with dirt. And she explained to us, okay, so apples come from the earth. And what we're doing is we're putting them back into the earth. And what's going to happen is all the worms are going to eat them and this is going to become dirt again. And she explained it in such a way, she goes, they're not necessarily going to become more apples. It really just breaks down and whatever. But that was something that we did. So it's things like that. It's examples and experiences like that that can take place in school or at home. But then at home, my family forever, we've separated everything: plastics, glass, cardboards, waste, forever and ever and ever. So when we're giving the example that families talk about climate change, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Are you bringing reusable bags to the store every time you go? Are you recycling in your home? Are you just throwing everything in one garbage bag? Like, those conversations need to be taking place. So that's what the study meant. Anyways, Mike, carry on.
Ah. So, right, they did take a lot of these things into consideration. And that's why the impact of this study is actually really, really important because they eliminated all of those specific variables. So this study found four key things. And the first is, probably not super surprising, but the children who participated in the climate change curriculum showed a larger increase in climate change concern than students who didn't. Although, because this was conducted over the course of 2 years, and we've probably all noticed that climate change discussions have increased, um, both groups, both the control and the climate change curriculum group, both showed increase in climate change concern. So I think that's interesting in that even though one group of students was sort of inundated with climate change curriculum, we're inundated with those sort of like ideals. Regardless, like both groups are just like, oh shit, yeah, climate change is actually a thing. The second key thing that they found was that children in the treatment group foster more climate change concern among their parents than the control. And then again, right, even though the treatment group fostered more concern in their parents, the control group's parents also showed an increase in climate change concern. So I think within this short amount of time, like regardless of whether or not the students were taught, there has been a shift in overall concern for climate change. So the third key finding was that changes in parents' climate change concern was more pronounced among families that are considered more resistant to climate change community. And the groups that they identified as being more resistant were conservative parents who had the lowest levels at the beginning. So I think this is interesting because so far in the three things that they found, yes, the curriculum that they, yes, the treatment group showed a greater increase. Regardless, there has been an overall impact in climate change concern during the course of the study. So, right, the children in the control group showed an increase in climate change concern. The parents showed an increase in concern. And then those who are considered resistant to climate change concern also increased, but there was just a greater
Yeah.
increase among parents or among the children who went through the curriculum. And Sam, do you want to do the fourth one because this makes you really excited and you're so happy
I
about it?
do.
I'm happy about it too.
I
But,
do.
I also just need to stop talking for a second. I don't know if all
I
of you can
do.
hear me, but I'm over here dying of allergies.
So, key finding number 4, which thank you, it is very near and dear to my heart, was that daughters were more effective than sons in fostering climate change concerns among their parents. And look, like, I'm not trying to play sides, I'm not trying to play favorites, but I can pretty much get my father to do almost anything that I want him to do. I can make him flip. Like, oh, Sam, you can't have candy this week because your mom said so. Well, go find your dad because dad will let you have candy. As long as dad also gets to eat a candy bar, you will get a candy bar too. And I'd also look, I don't want to bring politics into this too much, but I would like to give a shout out to conservative parents. I think that Republicans and conservatives in general are, or rather, can be known for not acknowledging climate change. And also, it's not just climate change. They also oftentimes don't acknowledge that there are animals that are going extinct, and that sort of this, hunting for sport with these endangered species is just not. It's not a good idea. And please go shoot a squirrel. We have plenty of those if you need to shoot something. But as a fellow conservative myself, I do think that heads can be turned, perspectives can be added to, especially when it comes to the health and longevity of our planet and our species. So that is awesome. I will not bring any more politics into it. Now, Mike, you took it upon your dear self to share with me an inspiring bar chart. Would you like to quickly talk about what we're looking at here?
Yes. I don't know if anybody else can see this.
We'll post it on Instagram.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if anybody's noticed, but on my personal Microscope account, I've been trying to post more figures from these scientific papers because I think when people hear science and studies, they're like, "Oh God, yeah, whatever. I don't know what people did," but the level and the time and effort that people put into finding these trends and sort of figuring out what all this data means is immense. So yeah, when I find a really pretty figure, I get it. I'm just they put in the time, the effort, the color scheme's amazing. I have one I'll post and I'll show you all in a couple of days. Let's give it some. So
We're going to post a teaser.
oh, what photo? No, okay.
So essentially what Mike is trying to say is anytime he sees something pretty, he wants to post about it. And oftentimes, while you and I might think that a flower or a sunset is pretty, Mike looks at a bar chart and is like, oh, wow. So
I'm
what we're
yes,
looking at.
got it. That is,
And
I
it's
know
funny
the effort
because,
that goes into it.
well, here's the thing. If you guys follow us on Instagram, you know that Mike just made a public Instagram account and it's at Microscope Mike. And you can tell because both Mike and I run that account. You can tell the difference between when Mike is posting something and when I'm posting something, because whenever it's me, it's like, wow, look at this leaf, look at this flower. And then when Mike is posting it, he's like, this is a thymonium hygloccolate septococcus, aka an artichoke.
Oh, are you talking about that Alzheimer's post that I posted recently?
No, that was very good. I like that.
It's
Anyway,
pretty,
so
right?
here's what we're looking at. So with this particular chart, we're looking at the parent climate change concerns as a functional or as a function of political ideology, as well as the climate change concerns for fathers and mothers. So it's really, really interesting. But, we won't get too into it because you can find it on Instagram. Go follow us. Mike, we always like to end every episode with what we can do. And you've been giving a lot of suggestions. I would like to give a suggestion. Just talk to your kids. Whether you have a massive backyard or access to a state park or whatever, or you live in an apartment complex that's surrounded by weed and grass, talk to your kids, point that stuff out, explain, like, that's a dandelion, and like, obviously, like, you live here, so if you step on it or if you pour your soda on top of it, like, the dandelion's not gonna be happy, but if you leave it be, it's going to be just fine. Just talk to your kids about nature, talk to them about the world that's around them, allow them to connect with us at Mikroscope, allow them to listen to the show, let them watch PBS and National Geographic and all those other wonderful channels that are doing everything they can to bring awareness to the world around us. I think that it's all about just exposure and having those conversations. And look, parents, you don't have to be an expert. Like, my parents exposed this to me my entire life, and my mother was a medical assistant and my father was a yacht broker. Like, they're not scientists like Mike, but they still taught me how to have an appreciation for the beautiful things that are around me in nature, and you can absolutely do that as well. Mike, do you have any other suggestions?
No, that was honestly essentially exactly what I was gonna say.
Yay! I took the
Like,
words
talk
right
to
out of your
your kids,
mouth.
be a good parent. For
Yeah, just talk
once.
to your
No, I
kids.
don't. You're always a good parent.
Always. I think that every parent is a great parent and everyone does what they feel is best for their child. But if you want your child to have an understanding of nature around them, point little things out, whether it's a tree or the texture of a bark, or even looking at different rocks that you might find if you take a walk around your backyard or take a walk around your neighborhood. I can guarantee you'll probably find just some like normal rocks, but you also might find some, what am I thinking? Quartz? Is that what I'm thinking of?
The White Rocks?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
you can literally find anything anywhere. Get them curious, get them involved with the physical things that are around them, because that's how you foster this. That's how you spark their curiosity, and that's how you get them to ask questions. So I'm so, Mike, thank you very much for doing this episode with me. I'm so excited about Kevin. I think this is just going to be so fantastic going forward. So, of course, you know where to find us. You can follow us on Instagram at _Mikroscope_. You can follow Mike at Mikroscope Mike. You can follow me at Whatever You Say Babe. You can learn more at www.microscopepodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to having you get to know Kevin a little bit better. Once again, my name is Samantha.
And my name is Mike, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for listening to Mikroscope, presented by Whatever You Say Productions. Learn more at microscopepodcast.com. That's MIKROSCOPEPODCAST.com.